Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of TC Talk. My name is Therese, and thanks for stopping by. So, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. So, today I have for you guys a really awesome interview that I did with one of my friends, Emran Fejzuli, talking about everything about filmmaking in Australia. So, check it out. Thanks for joining me, Emran. So, why don't we start by you introducing yourself?
My name is Emran Fejzuli. I'm a local filmmaker in Wollongong, and I'm presently finishing my degree in digital media at UOW.
What is Wollongong like?
Well, Wollongong is a town that, it's relatively quiet, but it's actually growing. There's more stuff and more developments going on up there, and truly it's starting to become, I think, more of a city, I think, than it's been called a city, but it seems like it's still got that small town quality, but it's starting to really pick up since the developments in the last 5 years or so.
Oh, fantastic.
And
so things are happening.
It's just getting bigger.
Yes.
Yeah, there's more apartments going up, more buildings. They've just finished this massive one, in Central that just overlooks the entire city. It's incredible.
So did you always want to be a filmmaker?
From the age of 8, when I was 8 years old, I was up one night and they had a double bill of 2 Arnold Schwarzenegger films. They had Total Recall and Terminator 2. Both were kind of films that really, how should I put it, set a standard for certain types of filmmaking techniques. Like Total Recall was seen as like the last non-digital big special effects movie. I mean, there were some early digital effects in it, but most of them were practical and they blew my mind. I was like, I'd never seen anything like that. And Terminator 2 kind of was like that too, but it pioneered more CGI, and those films just had a huge impact on my imagination. And I was like, I want to do something like that, That was kind of where that happened. But it wasn't until around 2013 when I started really taking it seriously, after finishing high school and whatnot, working, I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to do, and there wasn't really a lot of filmmaking related courses in Wollongong until around 2012, 2013. So I started at TAFE. I did my diploma in screen and media there, where I had a chance to work in studios, video, sound, all that stuff, and editing and animation. And I completed that in 2015 and spent a year doing some independent work for about a year in 2016. And 2017, I said, I want to go to the next level. And that's when I did decided to undertake my degree in digital media, and I'm finishing that at the end of this year.
So you're saying that one of the reasons that you only did recently was because there wasn't any courses, so you see improving, at least?
Not locally, no. It seemed like I had to travel either out to Sydney to do it or not, but also at the time, I was going through a bit of personal stuff. But once they announced it, that they were starting to introduce it, I think it always had been there, but it wasn't very made clear to me,
Mm-hmm.
And they started improving things too. So around 2010, 2011, I was actually doing visual arts, to deal with my personal challenges that I was going through around that time. But around 2012, 2013 is when I decided to really do something official. Right now, my focus is to get work in a video editing firm or production company, and at the same time, start to produce my first film or series, depending on how I decide to approach releasing it. So that is primarily my goal for the next 5 years or so.
Any directors, past or present, that were your main sources of inspiration?
Yeah, I have two, something old and something new. I have always looked to both because I think it's very important. There's skills that we've established in the past that are still very valuable, and there's stuff we should value that is new. So probably my favorite old school director is John Carpenter. I really think he is the master of low budget filmmaking, but also he can work with huge budgets too, as evidenced in movies like The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China. So he can use a maximum budget, but he really gets the most. You wouldn't think the films are that low budget when you look at them. Like if you see a film like Prince of Darkness, for example, that movie was made for $3 million. It looked like it cost at least, 15, 20, So it was very, very interesting to see that, and you learn a lot from him. He's very, very, very well thought out with how he does it. And my more recent director that I like is James Wan. He's very famous for a lot of horror films, of course, such as Saw. That's what he started from. And of course, the Conjuring films. And he's also now moving into more commercial films outside of horror, like Fast and the Furious 7, I believe. And I think he did Aquaman as well. So he's really done some amazing stuff, and I really like his style. And he's kind of got that low budget spirit, but he's also proven to work in high budget stuff as well. So that's really, really a unique kind of thing to be able to do, I think,
Right. So when it comes to filmmaking, was it as you expected, like actually getting right down to nitty gritty?
How to describe it? I mean, with filmmaking, kind of went in a whole bunch of directions. Primarily I set out to be a director, right? And of course, filmmaking has changed since the days when you were just a director. Now you got to edit, you got to know writing, producing, all of this stuff. So I've tried to learn as much about that as I possibly can. And that's what I would say the educational side of it has been for me. So when doing a couple of short films through university, that was really a experience because, I got to work in a studio with a crew of 10, 15 people. And that really put me kind of in the deep end. And the first short film I did through TAFE was a film called The Viper with a local filmmaker who starred in it, Troy Bruff, I should say. And we had a great time making that film, and it was very challenging though. We had 6 hours to shoot it all. 6 hours, and it turned out way better than what I was expecting because I'm thinking 6 hours, wow. So it was a lot of pre-planning, just practicing, rehearsing to make sure we had to get the shots right and all that stuff.
Is it because of budget, or you just only had that location available?
Well, it was practically zero budget, and we were shooting in a studio. That was all shot in the studio, and we set up everything to look it up, and we had a shot of a building. It was a stock footage shot of a building, and I added some filters and effects to it to make it look like blend in. And it fit the set because the building was kind of all worn out and rickety, which is what I wanted. And the film is kind of a tribute to like 70s, early 80s exploitation films. So it has that kind of Death Wish, The Exterminator style. And it was quite fun putting that together and working with so many, different kinds of people on that set, from sound to lighting instructors, etc. And having to communicate with them and go through that process, that was quite a task.
But you guys were successful in the end, right?
Very successful. It was overall, it was 6 hours per day, to be correct. I remember now we had 2 days of shooting because we only had that many days available. Other students wanted to use the studio as well. Mm-hmm. And they were really pushy about it. They were really trying to make it, we need to use it too. And I'm like, well, we got this much time. We need to use all the time we have. So we were really, really careful. And, I was keeping everything to a list. It was intense, but, everybody had a great time overall.
Why don't you tell us more about some of the shorts that you've done and if you have a favorite?
Yeah, I have two that I'm very proud of. The Viper I briefly talked about. I really felt I captured a certain visual style and atmosphere to it that I really wanted. I wanted this very kind of noir, film noir, neo-noir look to it, but mix it with that kind of uncomfortable, I guess you could call it exploitation style of cinema. It was very raw style that didn't hold back on showing really gruesome details on the harshness of some of the realities in life, or just didn't hold back. But I think I captured that reasonably well in my short film for the time that I had to make it, all things considering, and I'm very proud of it. But I also really had a lot of fun working on a film called Now It's Personal, where I starred alongside Bobby Lee, a very good actor who's also local in Wollongong, and you're familiar with, of course. We're all good friends. Yeah, that was a lot of fun because I got to experiment with comedy for a change. And that was a different avenue, and I think we really did a great job with that. And it was a lot of fun, and I think it turned out quite well.
So, through your personal experience, what do you think has been the biggest learning curve?
Biggest learning curve? Well, with definitely as far as making films goes, you got to really be mindful of the kind of films you're making. I mean, I'm in the middle of writing a script now. Well, I've finished a script and I'm storyboarding it right now. It's for an action horror film, and it's a feature film script. It's 95 pages long, but of course, when you're making a feature film, finances are very important and money is a big thing. So I'm trying to look at other avenues on how to make it. Should I make it a feature to start with, or should I actually make it as a series? Because I feel it can be done as a web series to begin with, or at the end of it, have it be spliced together. If it does well, so to speak, and if it gets made. Right now I'm in the process of storyboarding it, then hopefully starting pre-production soon. Always trying to be active in any part of the filmmaking process. I love writing as well. I love storyboarding, and I've done some storyboarding for a local filmmaker, Brogan McMorrow, and he asked me personally, he liked the way I drew and sketched things. He says, "Can you storyboard?" And I said, "Absolutely," because I had done that on my previous project and other projects since. Overall, he was very happy with the result, and he wanted me to do more for him. So he's asked me actually more recently to start doing some more storyboarding for him. And I also did a supporting role. I occasionally do supporting roles as well in acting when I feel I can do it. And he gave me a role and I felt I could do it. So he had a feature film called Teenagers versus the Horde. And it's kind of like a zombie comedy action film. And that was a lot of fun to make.
What are your thoughts on the current state of filmmaking and the film industry in Australia?
Well, that's a very good question. That is, with the Australian film industry, I mean, I think we've made some great films. There's a lot of films that I think we've made that are great, but I feel the industry could be bigger, honestly. I mean, in all honesty, I think the Australian film industry is small by comparison to a lot of other ones. We make good films, but I think we need to make different kinds of films, I think personally. I mean, for every good films that comes out, you have films like, of course, the Mad Max films, you have Chopper, which is one of my personal favorites. There really is a lot of focus seemingly on outback dramas, as I'll call them. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's a lot of that, and one of my favorite films is a film called Tomorrow When the War Began, which to me showed Australia could handle like Hollywood level blockbuster films. And it came out, it didn't do what people were hoping it would do. I think it did okay, but from the top of my mind, I don't think it did quite as well as they hoped, but it did prove something. We had the ability to do it. Maybe the marketing wasn't there. But I would like to see more of that, for us to try and do films like that, the Australian film industry to try films like that rather than just dramas that are set in the outback and so forth.
When it comes to like young people, young kids aspiring to be filmmakers, what advice could you offer?
When it comes to that, it's really, really challenging. I mean, with coronavirus right now, it's kind of up in the air. But I will say, one thing I can definitely say is when you're starting the path of being a filmmaker, know that it's a passion project. Because if you want to be like a film director, you want to make your own films, that dream, you want to be, a James Cameron or a John Carpenter or a Catherine Bigelow, whatever, right? Whatever kind of direction you want to go in, know that's the dream, right? But you have to have something to support it. So that is something that, aside from working on independent stuff, I've been actively looking to support my feature film that I want to make. So I say have something to fall back on or something to support your dream. So I'm working part-time now at an unrelated job, which is good because it's giving me income, but I'd also like to work in something that's more relevant to what I'm doing. So video production, video editing is definitely something I really enjoy. And there's a lot of work out there. You just got to get your foot in the door. And that's what I would suggest to anyone who's undertaking filmmaking: find a supporting job in that industry. I have a website. I've just recently started work on it because I did have a WordPress site, but I wanted to redo it, just start from scratch. And that's basically at my Wix site, just Emran Fejzuli on Wix. You should be able to see it. It has my show reel there and my CV and all about me. So if you're curious to talk about any kind of project or get in touch with me, that's where it would be.